There we go. So, hi everyone. We are live, hopefully everywhere. If you see us, say hi, say hello, and we are going to get started with I'm That Geek Show. So, welcome to I'm That Geek, the only show in the world at this moment that puts you face to face with top thought leaders, experts, CEOs, CMOs, and everyone that you want to pick their brain in real time so you can get direct answers about your own business, your own life, your health, everything that you're going through that we can help you with. This is the show for you. My name is Ifat Cohen. I am your host today, and with me is my amazing guest, Bryan Eisenberg. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. You know that you are, hold on a second, one of the very few people who can say my name right. and that is a testament to your ability to speak languages, right? So Bryan is the author of one of the most best-selling books. One of them is Be Like Amazon. Let me find that out. And this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about branding, customer experience, and what is it like to be like Amazon. A lot of things are changing today in the marketplace. Technologies are changing and shifting everything we're doing online, from communication to trust to conversions to sales to marketing. Everything is changing, but there are some companies that figured it out and they can actually stand the test of time. So when you join us today on this show, you can get a copy of this book, which is fantastic. I read it. And also you can speak with Bryan and me face to face. So before we dive in, let me tell you just a little bit about Bryan and what he does and why he is so amazing at what he does and why is he here. So Bryan and his brother Jeffrey, they figured out that companies have blind spots that can cost them between 10 to 30% of their revenue. And they figure out a framework that allows them to see those blind spots and actually recover that 10 to 30% of that revenue and bring it back to the owners, because it's your money, right? It's your revenue. You want to know how to grab it. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about customer experience and how customer experience is the new differentiator for branding, sales, loyalty, conversions, and everything else out there. And mostly, a lot of companies who are using brand customer experience are the big brands. They're putting a lot of money into that. There are roles for customer experience, all the CX and CXOs. And what does that mean to you as an entrepreneur, as a sole business owner, as a small company? What does it mean to you when the big brands are putting so much money into customer experience, and how can you apply to your business? So Bryan, before we get into all that jazz, tell me just a little bit, how did you even fall into this new, because customer experience is a pretty new topic, right? It's a really new, what do you call that? Like role that's existing, right?
Well, when I started, I didn't have any gray hairs, so it's not so new. So my brother and I started in a sales and marketing consultancy in the early to mid '90s, and that brought us in very quickly to the internet. And by 1995 already, I was doing this optimization, this conversion work for on client side. Yes, and we were doing some SEO stuff as well, but mostly the focus was on, okay, we're already having so many visitors. What can we do to get them to spend more money and to leave money here? Because I don't know if you remember early back in the days of e-commerce, you'd hit an add to cart button and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
Or you'd get to the shopping cart and there was no way to continue shopping, right? That didn't exist either.
Right.
So back then it was really simple to optimize things. But we went ahead and by 1998, we started the first conversion rate optimization agency to focus in exclusively on this, using data to customize the experience and to improve it. And by 2005, we published our first New York Times bestseller, Call to Action, which was the first main book, to really spend a lot of time focusing on all the areas of conversion. By then, we realized that it had limitations. That CRO, as it is, most people practice it today, is a dead end. So it's where we went into obviously this bigger category of customer experience and storytelling and narratives and aligning those to make sure that what you think you're doing internally is aligning with what customers expect when they interact with your brand.
So let's talk about that for a second, right? Because it's very hard to know what the customer expects, and you've put it so well in the form when you and I were talking about. Everybody's expecting the experience of Disney, which is, how can you top that, right? The communication of Zappos, the seamlessness of Uber and Lyft, and the speed and efficiency of Amazon. But none of us, small companies, retail companies, if they're not big, and even now, you've heard that the biggest milk retailers, right, was going bankrupt. Right. Yep. So like size doesn't matter anymore for conversions or anything. Right. So how would you know who what the customers like, so you can deliver that type of an experience to them?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to go and figure out more about your customer. But I'll give you a simple story, just relatively average business. So my brother was sitting in the offices of a jewelry client in the Bay Area. And at some point they're talking and they're starting to talk about how they handle leads when they come in and what the timetable is. And, they try to get back to everybody within the same day. And they sell very expensive, very high-end, watches and jewelry. And so they go on, they keep having conversation. My brother's, letting them go. He didn't want to harp on that at the moment, but he gets on his phone during a break and jumps on Prime Now and orders a whole bunch of things delivered to the office. And the package shows up in about 30 minutes.
Wow.
So he comes back to that point. He says, your customers can get all of these things and more delivered into their house in less than 30 minutes to an hour. Do you honestly believe they don't think that you could get back to them in less than 24 hours?
That's right.
And so we made a very simple experiment where we had their salespeople start contacting in less than 30, and that alone accounted for a huge increase in sales. And then we started them tracking how many were responded to in less than 5, how many were responded to less than 10, and how many were in less than 30 or greater than 30. And they were able to correlate a great amount of sales. And it's just that, like, no one's expecting you to be able to, ship packages as fast as Amazon, right? Like, okay, they're doing things at a scale that's very hard. But if you're taking 7 to 14 days to ship a package, you're not getting the sale.
Or if you're taking, 24 hours, 48 hours to respond to someone, same thing, right?
Exactly.
So what would you do? You're a sole proprietor, you're a small business, maybe you have a team of like 4 or 5 people, perhaps, right? How can you respond in that quickly?
So it's about having systems, right? I mean, I think this is the biggest challenge. I mean, one of my good friends, he's a chiropractor here locally in town. And, he was very frustrated with the traditional systems that chiropractors use. And he realized that if he was starting to use the way the systems they use, he would never succeed. And so just by building in different expectations and putting in different tools and different systems, and that is one of the key revenue blind spots that we see with most organizations, right? It's what we call the systemic growing pains. What worked for us yesterday, right, when you were a small business, might not work when you get to that little bit of a next level. And so you need to find those opportunities and have that agility to be able to put in new systems, new procedures, and optimize what you used to do in order to be able to keep up.
So let's talk about these systems, because, there's two trains of thought, maybe. I'm Jewish, there's 3, right?
Yep, it's always 3.
So, but when we're talking about systems and processes and all that stuff, it's fantastic for small or big organizations, but some of it kind of like takes the human element out of the entire thing, right? Customers can be seen as just numbers in a bottom line. We have 5 people responded, 6 people, right? It's just data. How do you make it so that that data stays human and, you know, we don't kind of like miss this entire customer experience by just looking at the numbers?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we do to make sure that that happens. So the first thing that we're focused on is making sure that the data that the company's actually tracking is focused in on not the business data, right? Not necessarily, you know, just their sales and their visitors and stuff like that, but on the data that reflects their customer reality. So when we started asking this jeweler to start tracking things, it wasn't about how many leads got responded to or how many leads came in. It was how many leads got responded to in under half an hour, right? That reflects their customer reality. How fast did we get acknowledge them, right? So when you start looking at customer reality data, it starts humanizing it. You start realizing that you're looking at data that's related to your customer. So for example, in Amazon, the category manager, right? Obviously you can think about, you know, sales and units done and you know, and how fast, you know, they're getting products to people, but they've actually simplified it internally and it's their internal story that aligns with brand Amazon. So I'll put a little quiz to everybody out there.
Yeah.
When everybody here thinks of Amazon, right? What is it that you think of when you think of the term brand Amazon, right? What's the values that you get from Amazon?
So people, just put that in the comments if you're watching us right now, or in the chat if you're in Zoom. If you are just watching us on wherever you are watching us, you are welcome to join the conversation in amthatgeek.com/live. You can hop on in and we can have conversations with you. And while we're waiting, because there's a delay in the broadcasting, while we're waiting for people to type what they think, I'll tell you what I think the brand is. I think it's just a marketplace, right? It's just a fantastic, amazing marketplace that knows...
What do you mean by marketplace? Let's be more specific.
What do I mean by marketplace? I think it's just a place where I can go and buy stuff. That's it. Like for the lowest amount of money lowest amount of money and fastest speed, right? So cheap, speed, and good. And there's an element of trust because I know if anything goes wrong, I can return it and Amazon will have me covered, right? So I don't risk my money or something like that.
So I think you've said it without saying all the words that they categorize it at. So there it is. Cheryl said it. So speed is definitely one of them, right? We talked about it. Like, you know, we know they're going to get it to us, you know, pretty quickly. And so one of the things that they look at is you know, how fast they can get product to you. So one of the main internal metrics is you know, the turnaround. So like Walmart turns around their inventory. I think the number is 42 times a year, or no, 7 times a year. And Amazon does it, I think, like 42 times. I mean, it's just an exceptional amount of how fast they get to you. And it's something like 95% of the US is within zone 1 of their shipping thing. So they can get it to them now in 2 days, but they're working on getting it to 1 day. So speed is certainly one of them. When you said marketplace, and this is what Cheryl said, it's about having the selection.
Yeah.
And so their category managers, one of their jobs is to make sure they have somewhere between 5 to 7% of the selection that their competitors have.
So wait a second. So this is good. 5 to 7% of what the competitors have.
5 to 7 times. So if I'm selling, you know, screen cleaner, right? Solutions. They're going to, and the average store offers 1 or 2, they're going to try to have 10 to 14 different options for you.
Gotcha. So wait, so why would you have, because with more options, more confusions, and people might sometimes don't buy. Why would they want to have more options and not kind of like the options that you're going to go and buy?
Because of the elements of what it does to a marketplace, right? Everybody could be there. And in certain categories, having that wide selection is a big deal. Like, you know, for example, when I'm trying to find my son's, you know, running shoes with size 15, the fact that they can have more than anybody else in size 15 makes a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. So it really depends. Then, of course, you have their price. And so they try to be price competitive with their top 5 to 7 competitors in that category. and they can change the price up to 6 million times a day, and they do that all automated today.
It's amazing, actually. That precision of what they know that you like. So the easiest example for me, we were talking about privacy and convenience the other day, and tracking, right? Like how you're tracked online. And I was like, I wish Netflix would get it right, because I would love to get, suggestions that fit me, right? And the person I was talking with said, well, go to Amazon Prime. And I was like, that's right. They actually know exactly what I like, right? And they bring it up every time.
Yeah, no, they're much better with their use of the data. Then the third thing that Amazon category managers look at is, so we had price, we had
speed,
delivery speed, and we have selection, and then it's customer experience. Like you said, if there's a problem, they're going to take care of it. And so they've consistently scored higher on the American Customer Satisfaction Index than any of their competitors. And when you realize that as an internal person, when they have to worry about the same things that matter to the customer, everything just becomes in alignment, right? They're not battling over each other. If they're looking at conversion rates, right, or revenue, it's almost in opposition to the customer. Like, yes, that goes up when you help the customer, but when they're in pure alignment, and this is what we find happens in a lot of organizations, that there's a disconnect between what the internal story is and what the external story is, and what the internal metrics are, and what customers actually see, that they lose sales. And this is one of the reasons why Amazon is such an incredible, growth machine.
So when you think about that, wasn't it true that at the beginning, I can't remember how many years, they were just not making a profit, right?
Correct.
And so as a startup or a company or whatever, how many years did they not make a profit? How long was it?
I think it was like 7-8 years.
7-8 years, right?
Before they made their first profit. But everything got reinvested in the technology.
So how many companies do you know that can last for 7 to 8 years with no profit and just getting market space like that?
Well, so it's interesting, right? Because, and this comes back to the core. What Jeff Bezos was able to do was sell investors on his long-term vision.
Yeah.
And he said, look, if we stay focused on the customer success over the long term and don't worry about the short-term outcomes based on the stock market, we'll get rewarded with long-term sales. And he's proven that to be true. And I think this is one of the key things. And it was hard initially to look. It had taken 60 meetings to raise his first $1 million.
Yeah.
But obviously, he is a brilliant man. He's put together a system of operations and processes that have driven his company to a level of success that other companies can get to. Maybe not the same scale, obviously, but it's definitely a roadmap on how to do it.
So when you're looking at the marketplace today, right? We have the big players. We have Facebook, Google, Amazon. Microsoft is coming back up, right? What do you see is happening? Because from my little view, right, Google is breaking trust left and right. Facebook is breaking trust left and right, right? Small companies are popping up like TikTok that might take over, who knows? But that's just, I don't know if they're going to become Facebook. So what do you see in terms of trust and customer experience? What is the future of the platforms that we're looking at right now?
Well, I think this is a really critical part to all this. Having customer data is critical to your business success, right? Everything you do, every interaction you have with your customer needs to be about learning and developing a relationship with your customer. The same way, you might do with your significant other or with your children, right? Every interaction you have with them is giving you a new data point. The problem is when you look at things from a very short-term lens, you end up making poor decisions. And it comes down to a lot about the corporate beliefs. And I think, unfortunately, someone put a comment here about Walmart, and Walmart is a tremendous company. But if you go back and you look at the tenets of retail that Sam Walton had, and you look at where Walmart today, I think he'd be ashamed of where his family has made decisions to put so many people who are working at Walmart who are still having to be, on welfare, right, and food stamps in order to feed their families. He used to talk about them being their partners.
Right. I remember. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing with some of those tech companies and the companies like Google, for example, Google, when they went public and Eric Schmidt was there was a very big push to don't be evil.
Yeah.
And you saw as soon as he left, that adult influence left, and the way they've operated over the last few years, I think they've lost a lot of their direction. There's no question.
They just
Facebook,
removed it. They
been
removed the do no evil from their the research. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and because I think Eric Schmidt understood, and you hear him when he's talking speeches that he's given about the power of technology and where this is going in the future, and that if that trust is the most important thing, because unfortunately a lot of the people who are at Google today don't remember the days when there was Alta Vista and Excite and Yahoo, and then Google showed up and they grew to take over everything almost overnight, in terms of humanity, right, of how fast it went. But people were able to make the switch pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing, and I think this is Netscape as well, and I think this is one of the things that you see with Amazon, with Jeff Bezos, and even when it comes down to his personal life, right, with the divorce.
Yeah.
I think you've seen that they didn't want to make anything public. It was a quick settlement because he understands that long term, even if he had to give away half his wealth, it's still better for everybody. It's better for the customer. It was better for him. It was better for his wife.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and I love that you say that the long term and the short term of what's happening, right? And just before we continue, Angela is watching us on Facebook. Angela, jump on in. We'd love to see you. And there are many guys here. We're gonna jump into conversations with you in just a second, but let's bring this home, right? So Google is messing up, Facebook is messing up, Microsoft, I think they learned their lesson and they're starting to become a little bit better.
No. I think under Satya Nadella, they've become a lot better. The culture has blossomed, and again, right? I mean, this is the difference between a Bill Gates and a Steve Ballmer, and Apple too, right? I mean, what's happening under Tim Cook is a different leadership than what you saw with Steve Jobs, and so as long as they have a way to have what my mentor Roy Williams talks about, having a North Star, having a core set of values that drives your company that you don't deviate for. And I don't care whether you're a small business or big business. Like I mentioned my chiropractor beforehand, when you go into his lobby, he put up a beautiful wall now, and people take all kinds of Instagram pictures of it. It's kind of cool, of all the things that he believes in. Right. And I think when you stick to those beliefs and they're true to who you are, and true to your business and true to the people you hire, you end up with a truly customer centric business. And unfortunately, when you look at companies, unfortunately, like Facebook, even though they're listening to us right now,
I know.
Mark Zuckerberg's goal was never to be customer centric.
Right.
Wasn't even a thought for him at any moment.
No, but he started with not caring about, his peers and stuff like that. So, it's not in his, DNA.
Yeah. And he's the one and only dictator.
Yep.
The way the stocks are done. So it tells you a lot about the company, unfortunately.
So what is it that, what will make people have enough, right? What do you think will be the last straw that they will be like, enough Facebook, because yesterday, the day before, there was an article where a lot of people started reporting that while they were scrolling through Facebook, the camera came on and started looking at them, right? And I'm talking to my dad and I'm like, Dad, remove the app, right? Like if you want to access that, access through the browser. For him, it's Chinese. And he's like, right. Remove Facebook? What do you mean, remove Facebook? Right? So what do you think will be that moment where people are like, enough, you've taken so much, you're just, violating all my rights and you don't care about me, I'm out of here.
Well, everything happens in a long time. Look how long it took Sears to die.
Yeah. Well, but Sears was a good one, wasn't it?
It was, but it eventually, right? But by the time the internet came out in the 90s, it was already a pretty bad store, right? And, there's still stores open today.
Yep.
So when you have that much cash and Facebook has a ton of it, they find ways to still remain somewhat relevant. They're obviously, people are afraid to,
FOMO,
disconnect
right?
disconnect from all the people they have there. I mean, I'm on there a fraction of what I used to be on there, right? And it's sad because it was such a great place to be able to connect with family and friends and stuff like that, and obviously made friends through social media. But it's just not a platform that is trustworthy with my activity and with my data. So I post very, 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 very little there because of that.
Yeah, me too. And all I post, is work and stuff. So if you're looking at where we're going, right? We now have deepfake, we have chatbots, we have AR, we have VR. We have all these technologies that are coming in to kind of like take over our senses and our sense of reality and what's happening. And it's very easy to manipulate, right? What you see and what you think and what you believe in. And so now we have this little balance of people, companies with values like Amazon, and people without any, like Facebook, like VR, right? Which Facebook also, they own Oculus Rift, right? So where are we going? So what do you think, like, I know these are questions of like social and ethics and stuff like that, right? Technology is just technology. But since all of us are moving towards the use of all of them, and we have bots that are kind of penetrating our everyday lives, and the ads and the deepfake and all that stuff, what do you think the world is like? What should we as business owners and as just individuals be looking at in order to build the trust when there is no trust, right? Because all these big companies are making it harder for other people to trust us. So how can we stand out and position ourselves to a place where, look, we have values, we are like Amazon, we want to be the honest ones out there, regardless of everything else that's bombarding you, we're the honest one. How do you convince people?
It's not through the use of technology.
Okay.
Technology can help you manage things, but trust is built on a face-to-face, on a human basis. And we're seeing that. We're seeing, with companies who'll get on the phone with you, who'll meet you in person. And so I think, we're going to see a swing back to wanting to connect more in person. Yes, we'll always want the convenience of being able to sit in our underwear or in the bathroom and order something from Amazon. That's not going to go away. Unfortunately, most people never end up underestimating how ultimately lazy people actually are.
We're very are.
So that part will always be there, but trust is built from connecting with people, and it's kind of like you and I, right? There's a different level of trust because we sat and we had breakfast together, yeah, right, as opposed to just staying online. And I think when people realize that these tools are incredibly powerful to initiate connection, but they're not connection, we will see much better value. So, for example, I'm going to come back to my friend Dr. Matt Delgado here in Austin. What he's done with his chiropractic office. He built his practice through Instagram, right, and Instagram stories. And he came here, moved from another town, didn't know anybody. He connected to me. I became his mentor. We started helping him out. And now he's opened up a new office with a beautiful community space. And I encourage everybody to take a look on Instagram and follow him. Go check out what he's doing.
What's his handle name?
It's Dr. Matt Delgado here in Austin, Texas. I'll dig it up and I'll share it with everybody here as well. But one of the things that he's done, it's called LifeSpring Chiropractic. Actually, I have that handle I have right here, so I can send that out to everybody. But one of the things he's done is he's taken his front office space and they painted a gorgeous mural in there. You'll see it as one of the, let's see, the 6th picture down. And when you go there, you'll actually see that they've turned that community space, that office space, into a community space where they host health talks and they host private yoga sessions with just a small group of the community. and they're going to probably do a Friendsgiving there. Just different pieces to bring the community together, because the community's helped build his business. But at the same time, that space belongs to them, because it wouldn't happen without them.
I like that you say that, because I think you and I are on the same page here. I totally believe that because of everything that's happening, we're not going to trust anything online anymore. And there are only two ways that we can build trust in our business is, like you say, face to face, but also live video, because we can connect and have these conversations across without physical limitations and meet each other, and then the relationship becomes so close you can fly and meet and do all these cool things. So I think we have the technology to connect us.
I think 100% the video and the reason video is having such an impact, and the same we're seeing with things like TikTok and Instagram stories and Snapchat, is because it's live and it's unscripted and it's us, and it's not, oh, we planned those words so carefully, right? Or it's a way to connect with people in a different way. And again, once you can take that relationship and start building it there, then nurture it offline, it's incredibly powerful. And that's how you build a business.
So let's dive on that, because that's and before we do that, Angela is asking, do you think technology has contributed massively to laziness?
Contributed to it? No. Enabled it, maybe.
Enabled it.
In understanding the rules of nature, right? Most animals, my dog's on my couch right now, right? If any of you have a dog, most of them sleep like 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. But if I told him, I have his favorite treat, he'd perk up and be completely energetic. Our tendency, humans are one of the most active animals in the animal kingdom. We work, and I use that word in the general sense, way longer than any other mammal, right? You just think about how long they sleep for and they rest for and
hibernate for.
Yeah, and here we're going, so many people 16 to 18 hours of the day between work and play and this and that, and we definitely don't rest the same way. And so I don't think it's laziness. I actually think that's really where our genetics come in, where we actually are and need to rest a lot more. Recovery, both mental and spiritual and physical, is so important. I think there's two big points to point out. There was a study, I'm trying to think about it, I think it was about 5 years ago, from Yahoo, and they said the average American tries to cram in 32 hours into a 24-hour day.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then there's also statistics on how most people are not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's nothing inherently wrong with laziness. I think it's a good thing to be able to sit in our house and bang on our drums all day if we want to.
Yeah, and you know what? I think technology will enable that, right? So the minute we stop doing these menial jobs of flipping burgers and assembly lines and all that stuff, we'll have so much free time to connect, to get to know each other, to philosophize, to create art, right? To do the stuff that we were supposed to be doing.
Right, that's been the promise for technology forever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's done a great job for all the billionaires to be able to do that. Not necessarily us, but that's a whole different story. We're not going to get into the politics of that right now.
So as a small business, you said a few core things. One, focus on your values, right? Focus on the trust, focus on the connection that you're building with your clients, either through live video or face-to-face, through live events. Create shared spaces like the chiropractor that you shared. And you promised to share a story about how a simple red screw helped build a business. Is that, hopefully that's along the line of helping small businesses?
It's completely along the line.
Fantastic.
So there's a company in the HVAC space, started out in I think it's Phoenix and Las Vegas, called Gettle. And growing up, the founder used to go around and help his father, with air conditioning repairs. And his father would make him hold the flashlight while he was working. And one of the things that he was taught when he was growing up was that every screw in the air conditioning units need to be completely super tight. And if they weren't absolutely tight, then that little bit of vibrations could cause damage, in the shroud moving to the electronics over time. Mm-hmm. And so when he started his company, he needed to make sure, obviously, all of his employees were taking care of every single screw. But here's the problem. Even if they took care of every single screw, how do you, as the customer, know that they actually tightened up every single screw?
Right.
So he did something ingenious. It's called innovation, right? And then when everyone thinks of innovation, they think of big technology and all that. What was his innovation? How many people here have an air conditioning unit?
I think everybody.
Okay. What colors are the screws in every single air conditioning unit?
Dude, I don't know. I don't think I ever looked at
chrome. But they're usually chrome or silver.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. You don't even see them because they're just part of the unit.
So he went ahead and he had all the screws that his technicians work with painted bright red.
Okay.
And when they work on the units, they replace every single screw with that shiny, bright red screw. So what does that one tell you as a customer about what they did with your unit?
Well, now you know that they worked on every screw on the unit. They paid attention.
They paid attention to it. And it helps their technicians know which ones they worked on and which ones they didn't, right? Because they can see whether it was a bright red screw or it's not.
That's true.
And by that simple belief as a child of how important it was to have every screw to be tightened, that's become a cornerstone of the Gettle brand. That and giving away flashlights like the one his dad had him hold in his hand. And they've used that and those stories in their advertising and their marketing, in every single visit to every single customer. And they are one of the largest HVAC brands in the country.
So I love what you just touched on, because I think a lot of us are kind of missing that point where you just said they connected it to his dad. They connected it to the stories. There's just, there's an emotional story there. There's a reason for why they're doing things. It wasn't just like, oh, I saw this guru talk about red screws. Let me put red screws in mine too, right? And I think with the internet right now, because it's so much, right? And we do have people who spend so much money on advertising, a lot of people who are starting out or just, trying to figure this whole social media thing, they lose their voice going like, oh, we should do what they did because it worked for them. We should do what they did. So what I'm hearing you say is like a business needs to find their own story to connect with people and show what their values are. So how, exactly. I know you're helping people do that. How do you help them do that?
Well, we spend a lot of time, interviewing them and their customers and understanding why their customers want to buy, why they started their business, why it was important to them. We've got some great stories, but there's a little stat that I wanted to share with everybody, which really ties this in. So, if you're past an employee of one, there was a study done by Inc. magazine where they asked executives, what % of your employees could name the company's top 3 priorities? Right? So in Amazon, we already discussed it, right? They have 4. It's speed, selection, price, and customer experience. Right. That's their 4 priorities. That's their 4 pillars. They're always going to live on 4. They've got 4 everywhere. So the executives, what % do you think the executives said of their employees know the top 3 priorities?
What do the executives think that their employees know?
What % of their employees know the top 3 priorities of the business?
I would say
maybe I'll let everyone take
2%.
A guess. How many?
2?
So the actual number, sadly, was 2%.
Oh, really?
The executives believed it was 64%.
Wow.
So there's a major disconnect between what we believe is important and what our team thinks is important and what we're communicating is important to our customers. And when that narrative is broken, you've got a major misalignment, that's a revenue blind spot in that customer centricity bucket, right? That pillar that is so critical to today's success.
And that's another stat that you gave me before we started. And guys, we're going to jump into questions just a second. So if you have questions, raise your hand. And if you want to jump into the conversation, just add something, not even have a question. We'd love to see you. If you're watching us online, hop on in to thatgeek.com/live and jump into the conversation. And so one of the stats that you were sharing with me before is that 86% of companies don't deliver good customer service, right? Only they think they do, but they don't. And then 1% of customers think that they're getting good experience from their vendors, which means there's 99% out there for people to grab, right?
Yeah, there's a tremendous gap in there. But it all comes back to the same thing. And you know, we start the book with an early story about Kodak, right?
Yeah.
Why was Kodak invented? Right? Kodak believed they were in the film business, but it's not the business they were in. That was not the reason they got started. It wasn't because the founder said, oh, I can create film. Well, why do you want to create film? Right? Kodak invented the digital camera in the 1970s, but was never able to execute on it. And they eventually went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Kodak was invented by the founder, right? In order to capture memories, exactly as Cheryl said, right?
Yeah.
And they forgot that they were in the memories business. And today, you know, Apple is capturing more memories, right, with their smartphones than any other company because they've made it easy on everybody, and Kodak's not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And so when you start losing that trust, I'll give you another fun example, okay? And I don't know if you've paid attention to this, but because you're near me, you know this. Do you ever get gas at the local H-E-B grocery?
I do.
Have you ever noticed on their pumps that they actually have a symbol on there, like you'd see on the web, of a lock?
Yes, actually I did. Yes.
Okay. Why? Because H-E-B is a Texas company that is all about the community and the trust. And I've never seen another gas pump that has that little lock that every website has today if it's secure, right? It was one of the very early conversion tricks that we used to do, is just, you know, tell people, oh, here's the lock, you know, your transaction's secure.
Right.
And that would increase sales.
So, you know, you actually, it's interesting you bring it up. So in my mind, when you ask me if I remember that, I remember it as a secure purchase, like what I would see on the website. That's what you mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. You know what? I have a picture of it here. Let me see if I can share it with people.
Yeah, you can share the screen.
There we go. We'll show people a picture of that. Can everybody see that now?
Yep.
Right. And so there is the little lock. Right. Yeah. Right by the credit card, so you know it's secure. If the light's not on, don't buy there.
That is fantastic. I never actually that I didn't realize. I did not notice that little lock. I noticed like a sticker that they have there, but no.
Yeah, so the stickers everyone uses, but next time you go, pay attention to it, and you don't realize it's small little details. It's making the ordinary extraordinary, and that's all they've done, right? Everybody else has got a gas pump with where you put the credit card in and where you punch in your zip code. They added a little lock. That was it.
Yeah.
And it's enough that especially with, the amount of, with the amount of people who get their credit card scammed, they're the only ones that I now go to because I know that they've got the little lock on there.
I like that. I like that a lot. Stuart, so Angela is watching us and she's saying that she's a photographer, and when Kodak went downhill over a period of time, it felt that as though they no longer cared about their own clients.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Like Blockbuster, who would have thought that Blockbuster would go out of business, right? And when Netflix came out, people are like, that little thing.
Let's talk about Disney then, right? That's the big news today, right? They went to 12 million subscribers in 27 hours.
Yeah, mine included.
Okay. Yeah. No. And you think about that. Disney is a money-making machine. If anybody wants to understand persuasion and planning for experiences, it's Disney. And even though they have the glitch, they have such a built-in level of trust over years and years and years and years and generations.
Yeah.
Right. That they're masters of every little detail. So their garbage cans in Disney World, Disneyland, there's a whole system of tubes underneath them to maintain the garbage levels.
Oh.
Because if they're empty, people don't feel comfortable throwing things in there.
Interesting.
If they're too full, it doesn't look good, right? So there's pneumatic pipes in there that keep all that balance. Every detail matters, and they do lots of little things to create this experience to help people, leave more money than they expected to and be happy about it.
And that's a great example of an entire company working as one, right? That is amazing because they are huge.
And their strategy has never changed. It's always it's the same storytelling told in multiple versions in multiple areas.
It's amazing. We can have an entire new hour just about how Disney is working, because that's an amazing way of how the leadership through the years, right, maintain the same value, the same experience, the same care. So you remember it as a child and you go there as an adult and it's exactly the same experience. And you're like, yeah, I'm giving my childhood experience to my own children. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Stuart, let's have a chat with you. So I'm going to pin you and you can unmute yourself. Let's see. There we go. Unmute and let's chat with you. Hey.
How are you?
Fantastic. Good to see you, friend.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you back. You were gone a little while.
I know.
Of course, you were gone seeing family, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, you got to make memories, right? Before memories cannot be made anymore.
Well, memories are what it's all about.
Yes.
And that's part of what I wanted to say here is that I disagreed to a certain bit. Schlitz beer, by the way, is back in production. The company that bought Pabst and returned them to their original recipe has bought Schlitz, returned them to their original recipe, Ole, and several other major brands. They own God knows how many brands, and they are slowly taking the best original recipes and putting them back on the market. You know, a PBR today and a PBR 10 years ago, they're two real different products. So there is a movement back to quality. In listening to the comments about Amazon, I agree Amazon has great customer service and product selection. However, I've been around some of their employment centers. I don't know if that's the right word, been around some of their major trading centers, and their employee relationships are not as good as portrayed. I have unfortunately been forced into going to Walmart a lot more than I like because their pharmacy's cheap. And their relationships have gotten tremendously better. And their pay rate's gotten better. So Disney, I know more about. I'm older than any of you, and I was there when Disney opened Disneyland, the very first one, and my dad was an early adopter. Trust me, we were in the car and down to Disneyland almost before concrete was dry. And yes, they are a spectacular company. But a lot of this is very difficult for the solo entrepreneur or the person. I mean, I think your chiropractor's an excellent story of how to manage a small business and how to create customer relationships. Yifat, I think you've got the deal locked on the internet here, that your goal of engagement is the key, even though you will never meet a vast majority of the people that we both met in our previous incarnations. So how can the solo entrepreneur, other than remaining focused on quality as a key issue, implement some of the values that you've talked about?
Sure. So, I'll start with Matt because he started with renting someone else's office and grew it till where he opened up his own offices now and has another associate in there and he's hiring more people. So, but he started as one man guy. He came to Austin with, I think it was $2,000 in his pocket, and now has a thriving practice. And he did it by number one. How many of you have been to the doctor where the doctor spends no time listening to you? Right? We all have. And he is someone who truly cares about his customers. And that became a cornerstone of him growing it. And so he used to spend way more time, and every review that was out there about him was about, oh, he finally listened to and figured out what was going on with me. And we started using that as a big part of his storytelling. We also realized that he was doing one of the things that he does more than most of the other chiropractors is he adjusts extremities. And he started showing those stories on Instagram, and now they do a whole thing on YouTube as well. And that helped grow his practice. And his whole audience now is a lot of trainers and athletes and young people who care about these things, and it's growing tremendously. On the other side, again, it really depends on the business, right? Every business has different aspects to it. I had a friend of mine who was selling a ebook in the sports arena. And one of the things he does, actually, I know two of them, they do the exact same thing. After every single purchase, they call the person who bought the product to connect with them. And they've got better brands than just about everybody else out there because they know these people as humans because they spent a few minutes just connecting with them. So it's a question about having, like I said, the systems in order to be able to do this, to find the time, not from doing other things, because unfortunately most solopreneurs spend time on things that don't bring any value to their customers or to their business.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, having been a solo entrepreneur since God was a small child. I understand what you're saying about that. Also creating stories. Do I get it correctly? Because I came in late to the show today. Do I get it correctly that having a story to tell, I'm an Irishman, I've always got a story. But having a story to tell is key to your customer relationship or your public relations goals for your client?
Absolutely. I promise you, if you spend a week just paying attention to Dr. Matt's Instagram stories and posts, you'll feel like you know him, right? And they're similar stories.
Yeah, I haven't figured out Instagram at all yet. So.
Well, it's just like a lot of the other mediums. It's just way more visual than anything else. But I bet you there's a story even behind the hat you're wearing.
Oh, you bet, brother.
Right, and so how can you connect that the same way that the owner of Gettle connected the red screw to his business? There's always stories, and the problem is we forget to tell people. We have a curse of knowledge about our own business and our own values. And why did we get into the business we got into? What problem were we trying to solve? And I see this especially as companies grow. So as solopreneurs, you just have to stay true to yourself, right? But it's once you start putting in some of the systems of growth that when you start getting managers in, where everything starts breaking apart.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about the use of independent contractors, the freelancers as your outsource for much of your business, quote unquote, that you're not doing yourself? I mean, that is not something that's on my desktop.
Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. Again, if you can find a way to deliver it consistently. That's just it, right? You know, if you have different freelancers all the time doing different things, then you're not going to deliver a consistent product, and the experience will suffer.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent comment at the end. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah, always great seeing you, Stuart. And my long lost friend. Hey, Cheryl, can you unmute yourself? There we go. Let's see.
So.
Yay, hi.
Yay.
We
Can
hear
you hear me? This is so special. And I probably will cut up because I don't have a very good internet connection. First of all, Bryan, this has been a wonderful experience for me because I've been a fan, admirer, you know, like a word geek over your stuff for a long time. The thing that I would suggest and that I've noticed with companies is, you know, like when you're talking about like the 85% that don't, you know, that we're assuming that people knew what their company was all about. I always think about who's got the last touch with the customer, because that is the person that is the most important person in the business. Because if they have for 1 second badness about them and attitude, and I don't care if you do 99.9% things perfectly, it's that last touch that's going to make that huge difference. And they're the ones that are going to go out and tell the story of your business, regardless.
So I've got a fun story to share with that, and I know Ifat will appreciate this. I'm gonna pull up this picture. Hold on.
I'm going to mute myself.
Oh, no problem. So I'll share this in a minute. But how many people here have heard of the store Lush? Right? You know, they sell all kinds of. Hold on, I'm gonna hide this for a second. Let me share my screen. Here it is. So typically, when you buy things, like this is a picture, an Instagram picture from a friend of mine. They come packaged beautifully, and they're handmade cosmetics and soaps and bath bombs and stuff like that. So my daughter was just turned 16, and she went to the Domain, Ifat, to buy some stuff with her friend. And on the way home, she's a few minutes away. She decides she wanted to open it up to smell the product. So she opens up the container of her mask, and inside it looked like this.
And it's supposed to be purple.
No, it's supposed to be this color.
Oh, okay.
But if you look closely at it, and again, it depends on your screen and the resolution, and I can try to make this a little bit bigger. But this is a face mask, okay? And,
yeah.
Doesn't it look like someone's fingers were in there?
Oh, that's how. So this is fresh. Because I thought that's after first use.
No, she opened it up in the car, and this is what she saw.
Oh no.
So she calls me and she says, "Dad, I don't know what to do. I just driving home with my friend, and we just bought this, and I almost home, and I open it up, and it looks like someone's fingers are in it."
Yeah, like it's used.
I said, just by the way, I presented this at a keynote at a veterinary conference, and they thought it was something else.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm sure almost everybody here would not put this on their face.
Right.
Okay, so I go ahead and I tell her, "Hey, go drive back to the store and show it to them, and I'm sure they'll say that they'll replace it." I'm gonna share another thing in their store, on their screen, everywhere, every store around the world, and I've seen these stores in Milan, I've seen them in Sweden, all across the U.S. Right here, right above this green on the second column, it says, "We believe our products are good value, that we should make a profit, and the customer is always right."
Yeah.
And I believe that Lush management believes that the customer is always right. So she walks in, drives back from our house, back to the Domain, finds some parking, walks into the store, waits to find somebody who's free, finally finds somebody, and she goes, "Excuse me, I just bought this. We just left the store about 45 minutes ago. I drove back home and I opened it up and I saw this." And the gentleman goes, "Oh, that's natural. That's the way it's supposed to be."
Wah, wah, wah.
She was upset, didn't know what to do. She went home. Of course, she's a 16-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
And she's well spoken and carries herself well, but still, she was upset. I got on Twitter and I got her. I sent them the picture and I got her the $10 back for it. Right, and this was her own money. She may have been back now 3 times now that she's in college to the brand. Why? Because it was an average employee, probably on a not average day. Maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe he was the one who packed it. Who knows? Who basically ruined the whole brand experience for her when she was going there almost every other week and spending money.
So she stopped going to the brand.
She stopped going. Why? Because this one person, even though they believe that the customer is always right, refused to say that she was right.
So this is a really interesting thing, and I know we're running out. Do you still have time? Can we meet? Okay, fantastic. So it's an interesting thing, right? Because there's a balance, right? Sometimes we get trolls. Sometimes we get, a-holes that coming in and just taking advantage of good systems like that. How do you as a business know the balance of like, okay, you're right. This situation, of course, she was right, right? But how do you know how to treat it? Because nowadays, every a-hole that you just say something to can go online and just smear your reputation.
Yeah,
right?
So Best Buy has been great at this. They've banned customers, right? They know customers who return things too often. And so it would have been, and this is why you want to have basically a CRM for every business, right? You need to know who your customers are. They could have gone in there, seeing how frequently she bought things. She's not somebody who returns things all the time.
Right.
And you have to give the customer, if you believe they're right, the benefit of the doubt. You see the receipt was from an hour ago. You give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, she comes back in a couple of weeks and comes in with a half thing and then asks again. After a while, you start saying, no, you're cut off. Don't come back.
Right. So system. So even as a small person, right? Even as a small business, or someone with employees, without employees, contractor, outsourcing, whatever, you can get all that stuff done in Excel, right? Or Google Sheets. You just write down the names and once you get to a point where you can't manage an Excel spreadsheet, then you can probably afford a little CRM.
And there's free CRM tools. There's tons of tools. There's no excuse today to not to have at least some technology to manage.
And you can always go back to a Rolodex.
That's true.
Absolutely, right? Or a ledger, right? Yeah. But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So what we heard today is 2 things. One, customer experience matters a lot. And it's one of the values that Amazon is using, and it will help you go and be like Amazon if you really, truly live by your values. 2, storytelling, right? There's a reason why you are doing what you're doing. It's definitely not just for money, because for money you can do a lot of things except for what you're doing right now. There's a reason why you're doing what you're doing right now. Tell that story. Share that with the world. There's a great example that Bryan was sharing about a chiropractor in Austin, which to me, Bryan, is amazing that he's growing his business using Instagram.
Well, you'll have to get him on one of these days.
Yeah, I will. Cheryl, I think you are. I'm going to meet you, my friend. So tell your story, use technology to build trust, to get to know people, but then move off of technology and actually meet people face to face. And if you can't, pick up the phone, like Bryan was sharing with 2 of his friends. Every person who bought a book got a phone call and says, thank you very much. So there's a way to humanize that entire experience and really build truly meaningful relationships that will set you apart. It's not that difficult. Like Bryan was saying, there's so many free and very cost-effective resources out there that you can apply to your business right now. A CRM, so that customer relationship management,
yep.
Right? Customer relationship management. You can get that with your email autoresponder, like ActiveCampaign. They provide that. There's so many ways that you can do that. Just so you know what's happening in your business, right? Who are the good customers? Who are the not so good? Who should you fire? And then, Bryan, last question. How do you get those customers, the one who love you, right? They keep coming back. How do you get them to start sharing you and talk about you so that the burden of promoting yourself is not only on your shoulders?
Do something remarkable. Be remarkable, right?
Be remarkable.
The whole concept of word of mouth is about being remarkable, having something that people can remark about.
Ooh.
Right? And it's always in taking that ordinary and making it extraordinary. So same thing, right? There's a lot of great businesses we can point to, like, you know, HEB with the gas station, or the opposite way, right? With Lush, you know, by not treating my daughter well, they've also become remarkable, right? In the wrong way. Because I've told that story now to probably tens of thousands of people, and I'm sure it's affected a good amount of people from never going in there.
I never heard of the company, and now I know what company not to use.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just finding the little details, it could be in the packaging, it could be in all the little things you do to create a, you know, something that people want to share.
And what I love about that, guys, remember, you know, the emotional connection that you can make with your customers. It's not necessarily giving them an iPad. It's not necessarily giving them, you know, stuff that costs you money. It's like, how do you make them feel human, right? That you really care about stuff. Go do good stuff. There you go. Do good stuff. Remember the tribe, right? We were talking about that. We lost tribes, right?
Yep.
We lost that kind of thing. So how do we bring that back into our businesses? So if you want to know how to do all that stuff, you can get started with listening to Bryan's book, Brand Like Amazon.
It's actually Be Like Amazon. You have,
Be
you
Like
have the old
Amazon.
cover there, but it's also written as a story, right? Not as
It
a
is.
traditional business book.
It's true. It's a conversation between two people. And learning. That's why I was like, yeah, it's Be Like Amazon. And it's a conversation between two people and learning how to do good and how to apply those principles into your own business in a very, I think I finished the book in a day or two. It's like really easy reading.
It's less than 2 hour read.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're telling people how fast I read. But it's a really, really good book, and you can listen to it. So just go to thatgig.com/live. You can get access right now. You don't have to opt in or anything like that. You can start listening today. And if you have any questions or comment or anything like that, Bryan, we can find you online. Where's the best place to find you?
Pretty much anywhere. I'm not hard to find.
He actually isn't. I found you on LinkedIn, and then I followed you to Facebook, and now I see you on Twitter. So if you want to engage with this guy, he's very engaging. He's really, really nice, as you can tell, and very available. So thank you so much for being here. Be remarkable, guys. Be like Amazon. Share, you know, have some values and share them with the world, because we need that, right? We have so much fake. We do need those relationships. So put that in the world. Thank you, Bryan, so very much for being here.
It was my pleasure.